Hey, thank you for joining the Maxwell Leadership Podcast today. I'm so excited that you're here. We're committed to adding value to you because we believe as a leader, you will multiply value to others. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm Mark Cole, and on today's episode, John Maxwell will be sharing 6 pictures that help us gain a better understanding of transformation. Now, in full disclosure, I have heard John do this lesson thousands of times. That is not an exaggeration. I've watched him do this in front of over 100,000 people because when we, with our nonprofit organization, Maxwell Leadership Foundation, go into new countries, John brings every new country the message, transformation, and gives the 6 pictures of transformation. So today you're getting insight into a message that we believe will make a difference for individuals and makes a difference for countries, communities. Now, once John is finished with his lesson, I'll be back with my co-host. And by the way, you know her as Tracy Morrow, but she is a board member of our foundation, Maxwell Leadership Foundation. She's been on transformation trips. She's heard John speak on this many times. And we're going to discuss these pictures and how they can be applied to our life and leadership. If you would like to download the bonus resource for this episode or watch this episode on YouTube, go to maxwellpodcast.com/pictures. Okay, get ready for a transformational message. Here is John Maxwell.
I'm pretty sure that all of us can look around and see something that needs to be done, something that could be better. My psychology professor once asked 3 key questions. What makes you laugh? What makes you cry? And what makes you dream? I want you to go back and think about what makes you cry and then think about what you can do about it. In fact, just for the next few minutes, what I want to do is I want to walk you through 6 pictures that help you to understand transformation. And here's why it's so important for you to understand it. I want you to do it. And the first step of doing anything is to have a clear grasp and understanding of what it is that you're doing. So let's go through the 6 pictures. And I begin with a mirror. Now, what is a mirror for? For you to look at yourself. You know, you and I, we stand in front of the mirror and we see ourselves. And I start with the picture of a mirror because honestly, I want you to look at yourself for a moment. Transformation, it begins when I look in that mirror with me. When you look into that mirror, transformation begins with you. So we think of like transformation of a country or a community. It sounds like huge, big. I mean, how could we ever do that? Well, don't start there. Just go to a mirror and look in it. And the person that you see, whoever that person is, it starts with them. So the reason we begin this transformation journey with the picture of a mirror is because when I started, now we're going back now many years ago, when I was in my 20s, and I really wanted to make my life count. I remember the first thing I wrote down was I wrote the words, I want to make a difference. And I did. I didn't know how I was going to make a difference. I didn't know when I was going to make a difference. I'm not even sure I knew why I wanted to make a difference. I just knew I wanted to make a difference. And so I did my best to add value to people, to come alongside people and be a plus in their life, to lift people. I was very intentional in me making a difference. The good news is I started making a difference. The bad news is that over time I began to realize that if I just had a mirror and I just looked at me, it begins with me. That's where it starts. But if I didn't get another picture of transformation, then just me, it will be good, but it won't be good enough. So I just kind of automatically moved to the second picture of transformation. I started out with, I want to make a difference. And I realized I was doing the best I could, but I was limited because I was only one. And so I went from I want to make a difference to the second kind of level. I want to make a difference with people who want to make a difference. So the second picture of transformation is a picture of us joining hands, of me looking out at you and putting my hand out to you right now and saying, could we do this together? Could we be partners? Could we join hands? I feel kind of like Mother Teresa, who just basically said, you can do things I cannot do, and I can do some things you can't do, but together we can do great things. So now we're starting to see the picture of transformation starting to get a little bigger, isn't it? The mirror, I look at it and I see the first person that needs to initiate transformation. It's John Maxwell, and it begins in me. I have to be transformed to be contagious to help you be transformed. But it's not enough just to have the mirror. We've got to have a picture of us joining hands, partnership going side by side. So let me take you now to the third picture of transformation, and just in your mind, picture a ladder. Okay, we all know what a ladder is all about. In fact, whenever you see a ladder, what you know is that ladder is there to help somebody climb up to a higher level, to help them reach a level that they could not reach without it. So now we're talking about giving a ladder to people so that they can climb out of their difficult situation. A lot of people, if they just had a ladder, if they just had somebody to say, here's a resource, here's a tool, we're here to help you move up. Now, I call the ladder, the picture you have of, we've got the mirror, we've got the joined hands. The ladder is what I call the ladder of servanthood. So what that means is, I don't have a ladder and you're down in the ditch somewhere and I just take the ladder and throw it down and say, hey, good luck, find your way out. No. I go down there with you. I get in the ditch. I get in the hole and I hold the ladder. Now, why do I hold the ladder? I hold the ladder to steady it, to give you security, to give you encouragement. I hold the ladder to help you climb out. Now, this is very important. The moment I get into the ditch with you and I hold the ladder, now you realize how much I value you as a person. I often say that if I see you as hurting, I'll help you, and if I see you as broken, I'll fix you. But if I see you as valuable, then I'll serve you. Which brings me now to the fourth picture of transformation. We've got the mirror, we're joining hands, we got the ladder. This is a picture of your heart. And the reason I have you look at a picture of your heart is because that's where values reside. Values are an inside work within people. If people just practice good values, if they learn them and practice them, society, community, the culture just begins to raise. Again, as I've said before, when people learn good values and live those values, they just become more valuable to themselves, their community, their family. They just become more valuable. So the fifth picture of transformation is the picture of a table. In my book, Change Your World, I have an entire chapter that basically says we change our world one table at a time. Now, why does it work in a small group around a table? Because the values that the people are being exposed to, they need to be expressed. They need to be discussed. They need to be talked about. They need to be shared. They need to be practiced. In other words, this is more than a mental exercise. This is an embracing of a new lifestyle. You see, there are three questions that people ask to be transformed. Do you care for me? Can you help me? Can I trust you? Now, those are transformation questions. And around the table, those three questions are answered. Around the table, you find people that truly care for you. They like you. Around the table, as you share, experiences, you find people that can help you because they've had an experience similar to yours. And all of a sudden you say, wow, if they did it, so can I. And it's around a table after you spend time together that you know, wow, I can trust these people. Now, that is the environment that enables transformation. Now, we have one more picture that I want to talk about, and it's the picture of a bridge. When anybody crosses a bridge, what they readily recognize is that somebody has taken time to provide a way for them to cross uncrossable territory. If that bridge were not there, it may not even be possible to get on the other side. There may be a huge chasm. There may be a wide body of water. I don't know, but here, what I know is this, that bridges just make it easier to get from where you are to where you want to go. And so, we have bridges around the world. Everybody looks for a bridge to help them to get from the location they are in to a desired location of where they want to go. It helps them to cross that difficult territory. And by the way, that's exactly what we do. When we do transformation for other people's lives, we help them cross over. That's how you and I change our world. Let's do it together. And remember, my name is John, and I'm your friend.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified Team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
Hey, welcome back, Tracy. I very rarely introduce you to our audience with all the other roles and things that you do that makes us just a transformational family. You and I, you and me and John. But it's truly an honor to bring this message to our podcast family. And I'm so glad it's with you, a board member, a proven, passionate partner of what our foundation is doing to transform the world around us. And you've seen John speak this. You've seen John dance to this. We've all danced with John, the 6 pictures of transformation. And as John was teaching today, I was doing this image of joining hands. And John then started doing the wave. You guys that are not watching on YouTube, you're missing the fact that I cannot dance. And so, Tracy, we have been in aisles and all over the world doing the transformational dance. It's such an honor to be sharing it for the podcast today.
Yes, I don't know if it's a privilege that they get to see it or for those who are blessed that they are not watching on YouTube while we are trying to do the shake a hand and climb the ladder. And I was trying to remember what the mirror was. I can't remember what it was.
It begins in me. Transformation begins in me. That's right. John makes every lesson fun and memorable. And kicking it off, let me just say about his memory. When he first said, I remember when one of my psychology professors said, and I'm like, this man is 77 years old and he is remembering what a college professor said to him. I'm like, do I remember what someone said to me last week, let alone what someone said to me 50 something years ago? That is crazy impressive to me. Yeah.
Anyway, but that is John Maxwell. That guy has a crazy, great memory. But I also want to remind our listeners that one of the things he kicked off this lesson with was a huge call to action. And he said, what I want you to do is to not just hear this lesson, not just to be hearers of this lesson, but doers of this lesson. We've heard John bring these lessons to the world, but we can implement them right here today. You can take them today and begin implementing wherever it is. If you are in a classroom, if you are at home with small children, if you are, in your business, in an office, you can begin implementing what you are hearing today.
It's funny, Tracy, just real quick before you jump in. It's so funny to me because John did start the lesson with a challenge to do something. And I believe that's because this subject matter, you can't tell transformation. You can't learn transformation. You have to do transformation and demonstrate transformation. And I echo what you're saying, Tracy, and to our podcast team, our podcast family. I want to challenge you, get a message within you that, number one, will transform you. We're going to talk about the mirror. It starts with you. That will then transform others, because it's not about you. It starts with you, but it's not about you. It's about transforming others. John wrote a book at the beginning of COVID, 2020. He wrote a book called Change Your World. And in that book, in fact, transformation material came from that book. And in that book, John challenges all of us to get a transformational message in us that just explodes out of us to transform the world around us. We're going to make that product available to you in this podcast. It's a digital product. We're gonna cut the price for you and let you experience the Change Your World message, and it will give you a deep dive into these 6 things. Go to the show notes. We'll get you more information there. But Tracy, I'm so glad you brought that up. Let's start today's podcast with the end in mind. Act.
That's right.
Because transformation is not told, transformation is shown. And that's what we're talking about with these illustrations.
And it begins in me. I can say, wow, I really am looking around at the world today and I'm disheartened and something needs to change. Well, guess what? I might not be able to change the world, but I can change me. And the way that I can change the world is through the impact that I have in all the little places and spaces that I show up. And the way that I do that is by first letting my own heart be changed. It's an inside job. So with that, let's get off and running. Before we get to those 6 pictures, he does recall what his professor told him. He asked those 3 impactful questions. And if you've been following John for any amount of time, you have heard these questions before. And so before we get to the 6th, I would love, Mark, if you wouldn't mind answering those and sharing what it is that makes you laugh, cry, and dream.
Yeah, it's a very personal thing, and I really still don't know where it sources from, but I think it sources from my mom. My mom was the leader of our home. She was, my mom is still alive. She's 95 and such a leader before her time. We still have glass ceilings on women. We still have such a world that needs to be addressed and giving all of us the same opportunities to lead and experience the incredible potential in life. It's just all over the place. We still have so much work to do. But my mom, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, felt the urge to lead, but just couldn't break through some of the obstacles and glass ceilings that was there. And so every time I watch a movie and I see this potential, and most of the time it's in a young woman, a young lady that wants to lead, that wants to experience, man, I just tear up. My granddaughter, Penelope, I just have so much passion for her. And I got the same passion for the boys, but it doesn't make me cry. I just want to kick them in the booty and say, get going, boys. Let's go. But then Penelope, I just want to take time and work with her. So it makes me cry. What makes me laugh is seeing people fully come alive. And again, especially young ladies, my daughter Macy, just seeing them come alive, it just gives me great joy. And what I dream, as I've already talked about, I just want to see people, especially people that are most of the time overlooked and not given opportunity to excel and to achieve great things. And every time, man, I can watch a movie, I can read a book, that'll grab me. When we put a lid on somebody because of whatever reason, man, it just grabs me.
Well, I love to hear when you share your heart, because this is a blow the lid off lesson for people who just have a passion for what they know they were created to do, and they will not let a glass ceiling or a lid define them. They will find a way. And I think your mom has done that. When I think of Penelope and Macy, and I think of your mom, their grandma, their great grandma, who showed a way of how to find a way. And that's what transformation is really about. It's letting yourself be changed and then leading the way for others by example. So 6 pictures of transformation. He starts with the mirror. And when you look in the mirror, he talks about, you see yourself. And a lot of times I find, just as in raising kids and building a business and just leading myself, I find that the first thing we want to do is go out and lead other people and take charge of other people, when really the hardest person to lead is ourself. So I love that John starts with that, because we want to hop over that and get to other people. And he says, no, start here, because it's first and foremost the most important person that we need to lead. It's the hardest person that will lead. But this is the one that we all want to skip over. And so why is this so crucial, in your opinion, before getting to the other 5, that we really settle on looking in the mirror first and getting a really clear picture of ourselves and coming to terms with that before we get to the others for transformation?
I think for the age, since the beginning of humanity, I think that we look at external factors to drive success or to give opportunity. In fact, I think the greatest limiting factor of leadership is excuses. When you use excuses in your leadership, you have limited your ability to define and design the future that you want. When you resort to excuses, you now have limited and given up the control in your life. So I think when we talk about transformation, I think the biggest thing that all of us need to understand is it has to start right here. It is beginning in me. I have to take an inventory of myself. Yes, my mother, I've already talked about her, had a limiting time, but she didn't stop it. When we got home and my dad, who did have the position and had all the opportunity, let me tell you what my mom would do. She had let my dad know how this thing needed to be led. And what I love about my dad is he'd go do it. And so it was just this perfect team, and no one had this ability to see the magnitude of my dad, who had all of this accomplishment, was really on the backs of my mom. My mom could have sit there and said, yeah, if it's not me, then I'm not going to help anybody else. She could have made all the excuses of the realities of her life, but she didn't make excuses. She just found a way to still live out and express what was in her.
That's right. She used her influence, and she had influence with your dad. And instead of feeling sorry for herself, she used her voice, she used her influence, and she used her influence with her partner. Got results. That woman got results. As a result of that, what do we have? We have Mark Cole today, who is pointing back and saying, that's a woman who led me. You aren't saying my dad led me. You're saying you saw very clearly who that leader was. And I find that so inspiring. So moving on to joining hands. This is all about partnership. And how would you say, from your position and being both in the organizations that you've led, in the family that you lead, and also in that you co-lead, I should say, because we know that you have Stephanie. We have a great partnership in the Cole family.
Yes,
but also, how would you say, from just being up close and personal to how John is bringing transformation through Change Your World and through the values that we have brought to countries, to nations? How have partnerships 10 times the purpose and the dream?
Yeah, so I learned it early on that I'm a type A, I'm an alpha, I'm a driver. I've got all those characteristics, again, that I got from my mom. I've got all of those, but I found out a long time ago that it is better to be teamed up with someone that can give you greater impact with your time, your talent, all that you have, that you bring to the table, than it is to be the person that everybody looks to. And so for years, I've been in the second chair. I've been the second man. I've been the personal assistant to John, even with the title and the responsibilities of CEO of 7 multi-million-dollar companies. And most people see me as that personal assistant. But a personal assistant to someone with a big vision is better than my own life and dream, having a personal assistant with a small vision. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. When you understand the dynamic of partnership, I don't care how good you are, podcast listener, podcast viewer. I don't care how good you are. If you can find people and surround yourself with people that will improve you and will challenge you and increase your influence, your results is much greater. It's exponential. And so when John's starting to talk about now we're into transformation, you realize that it begins in me. But then you got to get away from you and you got to make it about others. And the first sign of transformation in a country, in a company, or on a team is personal responsibility and then an awareness that I can't get where I need to go without somebody linking arms, holding hands with me to get to the next level.
And that's killing ego, right?
It is.
That is not, and that's why it's so important to have that mirror at the very beginning. It's really understanding your position in it all is what I'm hearing. Like you said,
right.
People see you as the assistant. And if you have too big of an ego, carve out your spot and your position and your title and care about all of that stuff, then you're losing sight because you didn't really get a handle on yourself. When we go to these countries, I just think of the people who are on the ground, the people who live in the country. Those partnerships are so critical, aren't they? Because they have partnerships that John's content, the content that we're bringing, the programs that we bring, the way of rolling it out is all fine and well, but it will never roll out if we don't have key partnerships in those countries that have connections, that have years and years of relationships built, that they are willing to partner with us to make it happen. It doesn't matter how great our content is if we can't be humble enough to let them lead and make those connections for us. And so bringing that home to us here in your business, if you're thinking about in your world, sometimes you have to let your ego take a backseat or kill it, slay it, and really take the role of a servant and let someone else lead if it's going to open more doors for the betterment of other people, which is what you just said you're willing to do. Take on the role of a servant, which leads us right into ladder. And I feel like we don't need to spend a lot of time there because I feel like that's the whole role of this podcast. We talk all about holding the ladder for someone. And you might hear another leadership podcast or a management podcast from the days of the old lingo. And that's all about like using the ladder to climb up on top and step over people to get to the top. That's so old and passé. It's about holding the ladder for someone else, not climbing over someone. Okay, we get to the heart. That's all about motives. And then I think we talk about that often here. I really would love to stop for a moment at table. So how has being around various tables impacted your life and leadership and the greater pursuit of the dream?
Yeah, it's interesting. First of all, let me give you just a little history on our nonprofit. We spent, it was 17 years and millions of dollars training 6 million leaders in every country in the world. And what I said there was training. It would be from a podium, from a stage, behind a lectern, and then let me teach you something, and then now let me challenge you to go teach others something. It was not top down, but it was definitely front of the room to the rest of the room kind of training. And it was in 2013, 2014, we came across this concept of transformation really happens around a table. And I can remember John looking at that, catching that, and then going, hey, I'm done with training at the front of the room. And I'm going, whoa, wait, we got a good thing going here. There's a lot of people being trained. We're activating a lot of people. John said, yeah, but now let's try to mobilize them for transformation and see how many of them want to get out of a learning environment into a doing environment. And Tracy, we went in a country that we had trained 75,000 people in one country. And we said, okay, we've been training you for 9 years. 9 years, every 6 months, we'd go for a 3-day experience of training from morning, noon, and night. And then we said, okay, we're going to mobilize you to make a difference in your country, and we're going to do transformation work. Do you know out of 75,000, how many people showed up for a transformation mobilization event? 423.
Wow.
It rocked us. And what we realized is it's easy to sit in an environment and get lost in learning It's much harder to be spotlighted for activity and not step up and step into opportunity. And so we realize when you create a round table, there's no head of the table. When you create a table, everyone is contributing. When you create a table, everyone gets a chance to up-level the idea and step into the game. And so we started transformations around tables to make sure that discussions led to decisions, and those decisions led to destiny, and destiny's creating transformation.
Wow.
And so we're super excited because learning happens around tables, yes, but activation happens around tables because everybody feels like they're contributing.
Wow. Okay, so I'm finishing writing my note. That was really powerful because 75,000 people down to 423 really does paint the picture of the bridge. The first 5 that we've talked about are engaging yourself and your team to mobilize. So it is about showing up, preparing your heart for it, growing yourself, building partnerships, preparing to build a bridge for people to walk over from where you are today to where you want to be. But the bridge really is what you showed up for and you found 423 people. The bridge is like, will they walk across? You can prepare, you can get it all there, and then you show up and you say, will you walk across this bridge? And so the bridge is about offering a decision to all the people that we've prepared for, prayed for, served, added value to. So how do you keep your heart and your mind prepared? Maybe this is a little different question and you'll want to take it a different way. I'm certain of it. But first, what I'd love to hear is how do you prepare your heart and your mind in advance for knowing that not all people, when you create an opportunity, not all people are going to be ready to cross the bridge either at all or in the timeline that you want to, because it's preparing for something, but then it's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to cross the bridge at all, because growth really is up to the people. And I feel like leaders can identify with this because I can say this as a leader myself of an organization. Sometimes you can give them, cast the vision, show them what to do, create it all. And it all comes down to them taking the step. And sometimes it's very disheartening as a leader because if your people won't take that step either out of fear or whatever it is that's going on in their life, and they won't take that step. So how do you as a leader prepare for that and maybe share some insight into that before you release it?
Well, I love the question, and it does fit right where I felt at the very beginning of this podcast, listening to John, where I felt like I wanted to challenge our podcast listeners. You see, to your point, to your question, it begins with me. We talked about that. It's this mirror. I've got to get myself at a place to where I really can contribute to community, where I can be an active participant that's inspiring transformation in others because of the transformation that's happened with me. And then it very quickly becomes not about you, but about others. You're joining hands. You're holding ladders for other people. You're touching people at the heart level. And then it gets into community. Now we're sitting around tables. Well, in this last one that we're talking about, it's not building community. It is taking community to others. It's meeting them where they are, not trying to get them to where you are. See, the table puts us all in proximity, and then we start liking each other, and we start looking like each other, and we start thinking like each other, and we start creating all these little silos. But this last one, true transformation is when what is within you and what your community is so good that people that don't think like you, look like you, or even want to be anywhere near you begins to be attracted with the impact that has happened in you. And that's where this building a bridge really comes from, is saying, guys, if what you have is so good, it should be like a magnet to others that don't know what you're standing for or believing. I'm really passionate. John is teaching a lot of lessons right now on high road leadership. If you're a consistent podcast listener or viewer, you know that this is the year of high road leadership from Maxwell Leadership's perspective. Yet, look at the world around us. I mean, in the U.S., we've got a lot of listeners and viewers that's from outside the U.S. But here in the U.S., here we are in September, and it is almost like we have went back 100 years in time, and half of America doesn't even like the other half. They don't like them so much that they want to make them look bad. They're not building bridges, they're building walls. They're trying to build silos and stay in people groups that make them feel comfortable and make them feel righteous and make them feel like their opinions are the only ones that matter. And I'm so saddened. I'm so saddened at the state of friends, family members that now won't speak to each other because of political differences. And I'm just alarmed because we're not building bridges. Therefore, we're not going to see transformation. We're just going to see conforming and isolation and separation and all the things that would be against this message that John has been given for some time on what transformation looks like. If I could challenge myself, if I could challenge any of you in this lesson, it would be to find relationship that looks different than you, thinks different than you, has a different political leaning than you, and build a bridge to that community. Learn more about that group and begin to believe what is in you is so contagious that other people will want to be a part of that. In other words, quit building walls and start building bridges. This high road leadership message that John has, that we've now released 2 books on this. One is High Road Leadership. That's a book that if you're not familiar with that, I want to challenge you. For those of you that have a faith perspective, you don't even have to have a faith perspective, but you have this interest in this guy, Jesus, and how he unified people and brought them together. We've released a book now called Jesus, the High Road Leader. And it's not for everybody, but it might be for you, whether you're a person of faith or not, to see how somebody walked into a world torn apart politically. That's what Jesus walked into. And worked on ways of bringing them together with a higher narrative, a greater perspective than the one that was used to build walls with people at the time. And he started building bridges. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for us. That's what I want for this podcast. In fact, Jake's telling me I got to wrap up, and I just want to keep talking about high road leadership and transformation, because if we can get this message, podcast listeners, if we can get this message of transformation and we can begin building bridges, we will transform the world around us and make a bigger difference. It was Jackie, who was a podcast listener, that says, "Do you have what it takes?" That part 1 of Do You Have What It Takes podcast. That episode, she said, "The wisdom that I can process and apply has making a difference. Thank you for leading well." Jackie, that is my passion for all of us, that we can lead well. I want that for you. I want that for the world around you, because transformation will make you better, but it'll make those around you better as well. Thanks for listening today. I can't wait for next week. Let's go do exactly that. Lead well.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Join the movement towards high road leadership with John C. Maxwell's latest book. In High Road Leadership, John explores the power of valuing all people, doing the right things for the right reasons, and placing others above personal agendas. Learn how to inspire positive change and bring people together in a world that divides. Order now and receive exclusive bonuses, including a keynote on high road leadership by John Maxwell himself and a sneak peek into 3 impactful chapters. Take the first step towards becoming a high road leader. Visit highroadleadershipbook.com to order your copy today.